This is the DRF Sports Podcast, episode 86. Don't forget to like, follow, and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. I'm your host, Sheldon Alexander, with a special reminder to like and subscribe to our YouTube page so that you never miss our expert betting insights. The NBA Finals now tied at 2 after Steph Curry put on a show for the ages. I can't lie, I was on the Celtics and they blew it yet again, but credit where credit is due because Steph put in work. Despite all that, my record still sits at 39-30 in the play-in/playoffs and 51-34-1 overall against the spread for my NBA picks on this DRF Sports Podcast. And again, that's why you need to make sure you like and subscribe to make sure you get our expert betting insights here on the DRF Sports Podcast. So the toughest part as I look at both of those two guys is that Jayson Tatum just has more that he is responsible for, right? So he has a more like, even if we look at those two guys and say they're both equal, or we say that they're, like both equal standing on the team, so to speak, like who's better, I don't know. The point is Jayson Tatum has more responsibility. So his job is more difficult. Whether or not whoever's better, we can decide that whenever. But what I mean is Jaylen Brown has the better opportunity to go over his number because he just has to essentially get buckets and play defense, right? Nobody's asking him to be a playmaker, right? The same way that they asked Jayson Tatum to be a playmaker, and Jayson Tatum has to score at 3 different levels. Like they need him to score at the rim, score in the mid range, and he takes his Kobe system shots all the time and misses badly, but he still takes those shots and then also shoot threes, right? For the most part, Jaylen Brown, it's like Tatum's driving in the lane, swinging to Brown. Brown gets it and attacks. Brown gets the ball, attacks. So I think he has the easier way of scoring. Now, the interesting part to me is what you mentioned earlier, Draymond. Are they going to play Draymond a lot? Or are they going to not have him on the court? Are they going to go small? Because for a while there, they had Draymond trying to guard Jaylen Brown, which I don't think is a good matchup for Draymond. And we can talk about why we think Draymond's been struggling, why we thought, Draymond's mom was on Twitter tweeting about she doesn't know what's going on with Dre and telling Twitter people to stop asking her because she's not sure who this person is on the floor either, which is another reason why the NBA is incredible, by the way. But beyond that, you look at Jaylen Brown, and I just think he has an easier job, if that makes sense, right?
Yeah, no, that makes a ton of sense. I mean, honestly, and the betting markets will take you there, right? It'll show you sort of you don't even have to watch any of these games to sort of know what kind of players a lot of these guys are, right? Obviously, high assist numbers, low assist numbers. Like Jaylen Brown, his under 3.5 assists is minus 140. Right. So he is probably, in theory, he's more likely to go under 3.5 assists. Whereas Jayson Tatum, he's at 5.5 assists and the over is minus 175. Right. So he is even more probable to go over that number to have 6. And so like all that, all you need to know from that standpoint is like Jayson Tatum's responsibility is to get other people involved. And it's almost, it's simplistic, but it's like, Jayson Tatum, part of his job is to get Jaylen Brown buckets. Yes. Where none of Jaylen Brown's job is to get Jayson Tatum buckets.
Correct.
Right. Yeah. And so like, I don't know that I'm dying to bet the over on Jaylen Brown points. I might go back to over 2.5 turnovers just for fun. If he's going to have the ball in his hands a lot, right? Like that stands to reason. Long
time listeners of this pod will remember I used to talk about high school football coach that would always be like straight up the gut, nothing fancy about it. Mr. Lilico, another Mr. Lilico thing. Cause he was also our basketball coach.
Of course he was.
Of course he was. Right. He would always be like, listen, if you have to dribble more than 3 times, you need to pass the ball already. You have your one dribble to set a guy up. You have your go-to move. And then your third dribble is your counter. And that's it. After that, pass the ball. That needs to be Jaylen Brown. Jaylen Brown needs Mr. Lilico in his life.
Oh, Mr. Lilico is back. I'm so happy Mr. Lilico is back.
Like there was a point he had the ball on top of the key and he's trying to like jiggy and go through his legs. It's not like anyone even tipped the ball. He just dribbled it off his own foot. It's like, bro, what are you doing? Right?
It can be a tough scene. Yeah. And again, like, going on the road, right? I think that's an element sort of in an individualistic way, right? I also think that's why Draymond plays a little bit better too, because he doesn't have, Draymond can tell you like he doesn't care and he thrives off of it and blah, and all this BS about like the difference between home road atmospheres or whatever. Mm-hmm. That's BS, right? Like Draymond's going to have a better game. It's just in what form does he?
And it clearly affected them all. Right, like Clay being like, "Oh, real classy Boston," and it's like, realize your fans do the same. Like, all fan bases suck on some level. Do you know what I mean? And I'm not.
And we talked about that before Game 4, where it was like, okay, that might have been a shock to their system in that one game, but that they were going to come out and play better, and they were going to be a little bit more ready for it, that was indicative by the first quarter, right?
Yeah,
that you knew going in, or not going in, but like throughout the first quarter, you're like, oh, okay, like the Warriors have this handled. Now it's just a matter of like, honestly, just who makes shots. And it was, it wasn't overwhelming to them in Game 4. And so again, as the series goes, like it's not just defense that sort of, rules the day here, but it's also home court advantage doesn't as much, right? And that's why I'm sort of surprised that this number has gotten off, to 4. Now, again, it ended up closing 5 in Game 2, but I think that had more to do with the fact that the Warriors had lost that first game. I don't know why there would be reason for the Warriors to like get out to a 4.5, 5 point spread here before tip off.
Yeah, I find it really weird that my basketball mind, for some reason, just has me in a thing where like the Celtics came out and won this game in a blowout. Like I wouldn't be surprised. And that seems such like a weird thing to say, considering like all the things you just said going on, like them being on the road, the way that they just lost the last game, all of that fun stuff. But we've seen it before. Jayson Tatum's 46-point performance. What was it? Game 6 against Milwaukee in Milwaukee. Like we've seen this throughout this playoff run before. And I mean, can we see it again? I don't know, right? Like the Klay Thompson game's got to come at some point, as we've been saying. Steph Curry put up a performance that I was never expecting to see before. Wiggins grabbing 17 rebounds. If you asked me if that was a thing you would ever see, Wiggins playing the most minutes on Golden State in that last game. If you asked me if that was something we'd be able to predict, and that's kind of the beauty of it. So we just try to give you at least we gave you some angles there on where you can look to find some value in betting on Game 5. And we'll be back to discuss what's going on in the NBA post Game 5, because no matter what happens, we know there's going to be a Game 6, and the stakes are going to be even higher in Game 6. And that's the beauty of sports and the beauty of the NBA Finals.